Okay, so what we're going to look at is the idea of discernment in school boards, and basically this is based on what is in the Constitution, and it starts to refer in the Constitution about election procedures, but we're calling it discernment because election can have a connotation which we really don't want it to have. So in doing this, it is an activity that is done after the board and the people who are interested in the board have attended the pre-service. Now, to do the discernment, you can do it one of two ways. The discernment can actually follow the pre-service, and I would suggest with a meal break, or it could be on a separate evening in itself. The reason to have a gap is that over the years, a number of people on the staff or your parent group will have already done the pre-service. So if they've done it recently, they're eligible to come and put themselves forward to be on the board. If you do it as part of the pre-service, they're not probably going to want to come and sit through a whole pre-service again. I think it also, by separating it, highlights the importance of the whole process. So some of the things that we need to consider are the fact that if we're talking about a board in a Catholic school, it has to be done within the context of prayer. We have to be very careful to set up an environment that is going to lead to the whole process, which has to be one of being respectful, of being open, of listening and considerate to the candidates and those who are going to be involved in nominating them. So it has to be in the context of prayer. Current board members also should be there for this process. And the reason behind that is they have a knowledge of what the board is currently like, who the current board members are, and then also what are the skills and qualities that they possess, but what might be needed to balance out the skills and qualities of the newly appointed people coming onto the board. So we have to be very careful to know exactly what we need on the board insofar as the people, their skills and qualities, and who are the people who may have those skills and qualities. So in the discernment process, we're really trying to unpack that in a very respectful way. Now, one of the things that has to be done is in looking at the skills and qualities, we have to be very careful to unpack what we need on the board. So one of the activities in the discernment process is looking at what is the composition of our existing board. So the balance of male and female, the balance of Catholic and people from other faith dimensions, the balance of people who may be all professional people to the balance of people who may be in other service industries, for example. So we're trying to get as broad a perspective of people on a board as we possibly can. Also, one of the traps that can happen in the discernment process is we tend to get a lot of teachers or support staff in schools who are interested in being on the board. So we need to ensure we haven't got, for example, a whole pile of teachers on the board who are also parents, because we do need that perspective from other areas to come and talk to us about board and what we want to get from our boards. We have to remember that to go back and revise the key aspects of that pre-service that they have just done. And this is really essential if you've left it to do the discernment on another night. So we need to look at the fact that board members don't represent a group. They're there with their own skills and qualities. They're not there to push their own personal agenda. That they're there in a service role to the boards. They have to be aware and reminded that once a board meeting concludes, their official capacity as a board member literally ceases. They have no other input into the school other than as a parent or whatever other group they've come along for. So that's essential in doing it. When we get to the discernment, it's a case of people need to know who are there. So it's about going around the group and each person going through and saying, my name is, my connection to the school is, I'm already on the board, or I have an interest in interested in being on the board and for what reason they may be interested in being on the board. They need to make sure that they also include simple things like, I was already on the board of the primary school, if they are going into a secondary school board setting. Once everyone's been introduced and had a bit of an idea and a flavour of who's there and why they're there, the next thing is to ask everyone to reflect on what are the qualities we are looking for the board members for this board at this point in time. So a board, say at St Anthony's, may be looking for very different qualities to a board at St Mary's because of who is already on those existing boards. So it's important, for example, on a whiteboard to then brainstorm what makes a good board member, what are the qualities of a good board member, and list those down, and then go back and also then list what are the qualities we need for our school board or the skills we need for our school board at this point in time. Once you've done that, and it takes a degree of time to do that, by the time you go around and draw out of each person, so the facilitator, whether it be the school board liaison officer, the board chair, the principal, it doesn't matter. They've got to try and make sure that everyone has at least had some form of input into it, and that's a skill to draw that out of each person. So whoever does the facilitation of the process needs to be someone with a little bit of skill in involving people, making them feel welcome, making them feel that they're in a trusted environment. The next part of the process is there's a call for nominations. Now, for example, John might nominate Brenda, and he'll say, I wish to nominate Brenda to be a member of the board. Brenda brings with her a wealth of experience in education. She is a mum, a grandmother, and all the skills and qualities that John may think Brenda possesses. Now, at that point in time, no one asks Brenda, are you interested in being on the board or accept the nomination? So everyone lists the person that's going to, the people that are being nominated for the board. I'd again recommend that goes on a whiteboard or is data projected up and lists the name and the person's qualities and skills. Once that's been completed, then it's a simple case of going around and saying, you know, Brenda, are you interested in being on the board? Yes or no? If Brenda says yes, good, her name stays up on the whiteboard. If Brenda says no, there are no questions asked, and Brenda is not required to say, oh no, at this point in time for these reasons. It's just a simple case of, no, I'd like to decline. Brenda's name is then removed from the list of people who are going to be nominated. Now, from there, once again, it's all about determining the skills you want and trying to match up the people. You can then ask people, for example, Brenda has accepted the nomination. The question could simply be asked, and Brenda, why would you like to be part of this board? Now, Brenda then gives, I want to be on the board because of these reasons. So it starts to give people a sense of where is Brenda coming from and further skills that she may have. We then, if there are more people there to go on the board than you require, you do move to an election process. And it's probably the only time as part of a board that we ever actually do an election or vote on anything. And the process is very simple. Let's suppose we have Brenda and John and Ross who are nominated to be on the board and have accepted it. Everyone there writes down the name of the person they would like to, on the board. It's collected, highest number of votes is elected to the board. Now, let's suppose we only have 2 vacancies and 3 people, and this is where we have to be careful to be respectful. That you're reminding everyone once again, it's not about this person, but it's about the skills they possess to fill the vacancy and the skills that are required on the board. You would then move to another election. You don't go back and look at the second highest score, Because once people have voted once, and let's suppose Brenda is elected in that first process, then the people who voted for Brenda now have to have a choice of either John or Ross, and then you do the election again and the next person is welcomed onto the board. The thing that you do try to stress and be very respectful of is the fact that there is somebody who may have wanted to be on the board and didn't do it. My suggestion would be that at the end of the evening, when you congratulate the other two, you also congratulate the third person who didn't get onto the board for putting their name forward, for taking that risk, for having the skills that are really great and we may need them in the future. I would suggest then a little conversation is held with the person, if it was Ross, for example, who didn't get onto the board, and said, look, thank you so much for being part of it. You know, now you've done the pre-service and we know more about you. Should a vacancy come up, you may be co-opted onto the board, or in the future, put your name forward again for the whole process. Remember the key things must be done within the context of a prayerful atmosphere. So I would suggest a focus point, some sort of thing to really identify this is a special occasion and an important part of the life of the school and the life of the board. Identify the skills and qualities you want on the board, identify the skills and qualities that are needed of a board member, and then move to what are the skills and qualities of the people who are putting themselves forward. And hopefully through that, you will discern a way to get good new board members.